Now we're going to take a look at one-click ways and more complicated ways to remove red eye. A little known fact, light-skinned people with blue eyes tend to get red eye more often in photos. That's why I selected this image. If I zoom in with Control plus or Command plus, you could see it's a nice solid red area around the pupil, and it's as easy as right-clicking or clicking and holding on the Spot Healing Brush tool, going to the Red Eye tool, which has been in Photoshop for many versions, and moving to the center of the red area. One click wipes it out. In fact, there's an automatic setting that says how big is the pupil? Is it 50% of the round part of the eye? And how much do you want to darken it? When red eye is removed, it does two things. It desaturates to strip out the red, and then it needs to burn a little bit back. Sometimes I find that the pupil isn't quite black enough, so I can go to the Burn tool. The Burn tool is located under the Dodge tool. Dodge means lighten, burn means darken. And when you go to the Burn tool, just one or two clicks will help richen up the black of the pupil, improving the contrast between the eye color and the pupil itself, making it more of the focal point. So I hit Command 0 or Control 0, and if I take a look at history, here's before, here's after. Here is red eye removal, here is after burning, just a little bit richer. Now, the one feature request I've had for a few years is green eye or blue eye removal for pets. There are some cats and dogs that have blue eyes, and they are actually as likely as a light-haired or fair-haired person with blue eyes to get red eye. But this is trickier. The Red Eye tool with one click doesn't do anything because there's no red to detect. So, underneath the Burn tool is the Sponge tool. Red eye is great and probably works 90 to 95% of the time, but there are some instances where it won't work because the red isn't round or it's having a hard time finding the red in the eye, depending on the detail of the shot. I'm going to go to the Sponge tool. The Sponge tool technically desaturates. That means it strips out color, and I want to strip out all the color, so I'll set the flow up to 100%. By stripping out all the color, you move towards black and white. I'll dial down my brush size to the size of the pupil. And because I have a hardness of 0, a soft brush, it's okay to go a little bit bigger than the pupil itself. I'll click away here. I call this the safety area to make the brush size go away. And now one or two clicks or more will remove that red eye. I'm going to hit my left bracket once to make my brush size smaller and a few clicks to remove it. Now if I hit Command 0 or Control 0, definitely the red eye is gone, but the pupils still look a little flat. So the last thing I'll do is hit Control plus a few times and wheel up with my mouse, and I'll come back to the Burn tool. The burn is set automatically to midtones, and to get a little bit more detail, I can go to Window and Info. And in the Info panel, I'm going to again use the left bracket key next to the letter P on my keyboard to make my brush size smaller, and midtones are anything hovering around 50% in CMYK, the print color space, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. So as I move over here, that's exactly where they lie. So a few clicks will darken up that mid-tone, and it leaves a little glint in his eye, a little bit of sparkle. Because that's a highlight, it's not really touching it. There is a setting where you could change it to darken the highlights if you wanted to do so. And now darkening the highlights will get a little bit more of that gray, but it still preserves the white fairly well. Let's take a look. Back in history, I can click to see before and after. Scroll up a little bit more, before and after. Yes, it looks like it did get too gray in the little sparkly part of the eye. So I'll give you one last trick. This is a trick I love for adding that glint or glimmer in someone's eye, especially if they aren't in the foreground, in the light. They may not get a sparkle. They might be standing behind everyone else, so it makes their face look a little bit more dead, just not as alert. On the paintbrush tool, I will swap my colors so that white is the foreground, and I will choose a custom brush. Photoshop ships with a lot of custom brushes, and there are some that look like stars. And depending on the resolution of your image, the one you use will vary. I think 26 pixels will be about right, because there is a glint I can aim for right now. So one click here gives a little sparkle. One click here gives another sparkle. Control 0 or Command 0 will fit in window, and let's take a look at a final before and after. Before, after. Much better. Now let's conclude with a few tips. If you want to prevent red eye when taking the shot, if you have a high-end camera, you can actually reduce the shutter speed to something like 1/60th of a second. Often the shutter is too fast, causing the red eye to occur. Many point-and-shoot digital cameras have a red eye reduction mode. Technically, it's a pre-flash, 2 or 3 lights that'll go off directly before the final shot, which distracts the red eye from being captured in the image. The next thing you could do is turn on more light in the room. Looking into the light before you take a photo reduces your pupil size, so you actually see more of the colored part of the eye, the iris of the eye. It's a trick I often use when I have to do a headshot of myself. Finally, look slightly to the side, not directly at the camera. Staring directly at the camera where the flash is causes more red eye. In fact, in high-end photography, they often put a flash away from the lens so it prevents red eye if they have to do a flood flash or a fill flash. And in my Googling for tips to prevent red eye when I first started teaching Photoshop, believe it or not, one of the silly things that I learned is sobriety prevents red eye. Because if you've had an alcoholic beverage or something else, your pupils actually enlarge. And the bigger the black area, the more the flash is going to hit off that, the more likely you are to have red eye. But I know that my dog is sober, and I know the child in the picture was sober, so I would have to go to the previous list to prevent the red eye. So give these 2 tools a try, or 3 tools we've actually covered. The red eye tool, under the spot healing brush, and the sponge tool to suck out the color manually to desaturate, leaving you with gray, and the burn to richen it up to a black.